No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends.
When candidate Joe Biden made that declaration during the Democratic presidential debates, oil and gas companies had already been stockpiling leases to drill on federal land. They knew that throughout his political career, now President Biden believed banning new drilling on federal land was a key to reducing carbon emissions.
And the president has so far followed through with his campaign promise, imposing a 60-day moratorium on new oil and gas leases and new drilling on federal land.
Yeah, big issue here for Utah. Fox 13's Bob Evans joins us in studio tonight with an in-depth look at the impact here in our state in tonight's 360 report. Bob.
Brian and Amy, President Biden's declaration of no more drilling sent chills down the spines of many Utahns who live in the oil and gas-rich Uintah Basin. They've been through boom and bust cycles before, but this time it's different.
It's 5:30 on a Tuesday morning in Vernal, Utah. Eric Weldon is headed to work in the oil fields of Rangeley, Colorado, about 50 miles east.
I think deep down I knew I'd end up out here.
Eric studied English in college in California and thought he was going to be a journalist. But with a wife and new baby on the way, he needed to pay the bills.
We'll build pipelines and kind of build the infrastructure around it, build plants and set tanks.
It's perfect for Eric.
You get to build stuff, you get to break stuff.
Eric's grandfather, George, founded Weldon Construction in 1975 in Vernal as a welder with a bulldozer and a road grader. His son, Mike, Eric's father, now runs the company.
We do everything above drilling. We build locations, we build pipelines.
Almost 60% of the land in Uintah County is owned by the federal government, and 85 to 90% of Weldon construction projects depend on the oil and gas industry. But as one of his first acts in office, President Biden halted any new oil and gas leases and any new drilling on federal land.
So certainly it is troubling when, with the stroke of a pen, we have such sweeping policy changes.
Ricky Rankle Browning is president of the Utah Petroleum Association.
There's actually been two different policies that have come out from the administration. The first is a 60-day pause that covers almost any federal approval through a very small handful of folks in D.C.
If drilling is gone, then it really handicaps the local economy.
How's everything tasting, guys?
Betty's Cafe on Main Street in Vernal has been an iconic gathering place for decades.
All right, you guys enjoy.
But with a reduced demand for oil during the pandemic,
the town's in tough shape, but we've got some basis, but not a lot.
A lot of people have had to sell things.
Dave Everett has been a server at Betty's for a long time, working for Lynn Johnson. Dave is also on the Vernal City Council.
People are liquidating trucks, snowmobiles, motorcycles, all of these things that they could afford prior when they were employed in the oil industry.
The divide between Washington and rural America has been historically wide, especially when it comes to land issues. The red indicates land owned by the federal government.
And these people are making decisions that are life-altering, that are changing people's whole entire way of life and living and their families and disrupting, and they don't know. They don't have a clue.
We have a moral obligation to not say, well, it's too bad, but to say, what can we do to help?
Democratic State Representative Joel Briscoe of Salt Lake City favors renewable energy sources and has been following the transition for years. Currently, 12% of the energy consumed by Utahns comes from renewable sources. The other 88% comes from coal and natural gas.
One thing Americans appreciate is paying a lower bill, and energy produced by solar and wind is cheaper in many instances.
And produces fewer carbon emissions once constructed. The renewable energy industry in this country is booming. Prior to the pandemic, at the end of 2019, Utah ranked 25th in the nation for the number of people employed in clean energy. In fact, the Provo metro area was 4th in the nation per capita. But Briscoe admits there aren't a lot of oil wells being drilled in Provo.
Which is why we have to open our arms and our pocketbooks to make sure that we have a solid plan in place and don't stint on helping our friends and neighbors and our brothers and sisters make this transition over years.
But I don't know that you can replace an oil and gas job quite as easily as we've been hearing from some administration officials. When you look at wages, for example, here in the state of Utah, oil, gas, and mining have the highest wages in the state, neck and neck with IT, above financial services, and certainly above a solar panel installer.
If the oil and gas companies can't drill, they're not going to buy local services.
Affecting contractors like Weldon Construction and all the shops and businesses where oil and gas workers spend their money. But that's not all.
It blows the hole in a lot of state budgets.
University of Wyoming professor Tim Considine studied the economic impact of the moratorium on 8 western states, including Utah.
Can have some big impacts on state finances by reducing tax revenues from severance taxes, ad valorem taxes, and the state share of federal royalties.
Which supplements everything your tax dollars pay for, including police and fire, schools, libraries, conservation districts.
All being affected by a revenue shortfall.
Even if you don't live or work here in the Uintah Basin, the entire state benefits from these industries. In 2018, oil and gas production paid $46 million in property taxes. Federal disbursement of fees attached to leases paid another $150 million. That's almost $200 million in a single year.
Today is Climate Day at the White House, and which means that today is a jobs day at the White House.
In announcing the moratorium on new leases and new drilling on federal land, President Biden said the reason he was doing so was to protect the environment.
In my view, we've already waited too long to deal with this climate crisis. We can't wait any longer.
But a moratorium on drilling only reduces the supply of oil and natural gas, not the demand.
It's unlikely to affect the demand for oil overall because there are a lot of substitutes for federal oil.
Oil from federal lands made up just 8% of the total U.S. oil production in 2019. The moratorium only affects new leases and new wells on federal land. Companies with current permits to drill can continue to do so, but those permits will eventually run out. And when they do, experts say billions of dollars in investments and future revenues will be lost, and the surrounding communities will lose millions in tax revenues.
I want to emphasize that, yes, take a breath.
Republican 1st District freshman Congressman Blake Moore represents the Uintah Basin. Everyone he talks to here asks about the transition away from oil and natural gas.
When you talk about potential shift to clean energy being the dominant source, it's the process in which we go to get to that point. What jobs are going to be created? How can we make sure to sustain living wages? Right? You have to have that as the key part of it.
Moore sits on the House Committee on Natural Resources and is trying to build relationships.
Let the process take place, see where the plan is, and adjust it and hopefully influence it as best we can. We simply don't have the infrastructure to switch everything to solar and wind, right? It's not possible.
Governor Spencer Cox and 16 other governors sent a letter to President Biden last week asking that he rescind the executive order halting all new leases and all new drilling on federal land and outlining the potential damage to rural Americans if he doesn't. But no one is holding their breath.
Eagle Country, 105.5 KLCY. It's the afternoon show.
Evans Family Media runs the local radio station.
What we're not used to is an attack by our own federal government. And that's what we're feeling right now with these series of executive orders that are targeting families.
With the downturn in oil demand brought on by the pandemic, Vernal's unemployment rate is already almost twice that of the rest of the state.
It's wrenching. Transitions are wrenching. They are discomforting. They are scary.
Especially when it's your livelihood and something as basic as how you get your electricity.
We're going to survive this. We're a very resilient group of people out here.
A public-private partnership is already giving Uintah Basin residents some options.
Our goal is to help diversify and give a second form of income other than the oil and gas industry.
The new Innovation Hub in Vernal provides a collaborative office atmosphere at very little cost. Anyone can use it.
Just clean up that right there. Finish that out for the day.
Weldon Construction was wise enough to diversify back in the 1990s with government and other commercial contracts. And now Eric Weldon is part of that legacy.
Every morning when I come to work and I see that Weldon Construction sign out there, it's not just me, it's my family that I represent. It's my dad who started it.
It makes you proud. Then to see them follow you, that they will continue after we're gone.
This isn't going away though. It doesn't really, they can pretend, you know? It feels like they are.
Creating new, good-paying jobs in those communities where those workers live because they help build this country.
We'll go get another job when they start flying Air Force One on solar.
Yeah, right?
Like a good family, we really know how to fight.
We're almost at the end.
We also know how to get together when times are tough.
Go to sleep, okay? Love you.
Now, it is clear that both sides in this issue are sincerely concerned about their way of life and viewpoints, and there's no question each wants the best result. Despite not being able to depend on clean energy as a sole source of our electricity, technology is advancing, and a shift will eventually come. In the meantime, everyone will keep talking and hopefully keep listening. And as they do, we'll keep reporting. Live in studio, Bob Evans, Fox 13 News, Utah.